Hey everybody, it's Keith Robine from Kootenai Avalanche Courses. We're doing another video today. It's December 30th, 2021, last chance before the new year. And the big news that's been talked about for several weeks now and is really kind of starting to get interesting is the early December Atmospheric River Rain Crust. And the last time we did a video on December 18th, we were in the Roslyn Range and the rain crust was down, about this much. Well, today I'm privileged to work up here at Kootenai Glacier. And take a little pan over to the cabin. Woo. We've had a nice cold week. We had a negative 33 as our low temperature yesterday, but as long as we get out when the sun shines, it's not too bad. Anyway, that rain crust is now down about 120 centimeters, and that's been sort of the story. We're going to do a couple tests here, and that'll sort of help you with understanding this story a little bit better. So I'm going to start here with the compression test, and we're starting at the top of the block. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We had a really nice cycle around Christmas, and that gave us all of this snow, the top 70 centimeters or so, a few days ago. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. And then we do hard taps, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. And as you can see, not much is happening. And that's because this rain crust is down, as I said, about 120 centimeters. And it's pretty difficult with the weight of a skier or the weight of me, hitting it hard to impact that layer that's that deep. I'll just take a few more really hard taps without hurting my hand, hopefully. There's a little bit of an interface right here. There was a little bit of a freezing rain crust at the beginning of the storm cycle, and it's not too bad in this test here. Some people have been seeing results on that, but then the rain crust is still way down here. So we're going to take a little pause in the video, and I'm going to do something called a deep tap test, and we're going to get down closer to that rain crust. The issue is when you're riding in a shallow snowpack and that rain crust is closer to your skis. In other words, it's shallow and maybe the rain crust is within 50 centimeters of your skis, then it's much easier to impact. And we're going to do a test called the deep tap test to kind of see if getting closer to that layer makes it more reactive to us as potential skiers. Okay. All right, so here we are now, and we've got 15 centimeters of snow on top of the crust. We're going to do the same kind of test as the compression test, but this is called the deep tap test. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Light taps. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. And now we're going to do some hard taps. 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. And around 24, 25, this layer down here collapsed. And actually, I thought it was going to collapse more up here. So I did this a little too high. But despite being a little bit high for the deep tap test, that comes off quite easy. And what we've got going on is we've got these sugary crystals sitting on top of, and there it is, there's the rain crust. Right, so when we did the video on December 18th, it was interesting because the bond between the snow and the rain crust was holding up pretty good. And a lot of avalanche problems get better over time, but sometimes you get these persistent weak layers, particularly ones that involve what we call facets, the sugar snow on top of the rain crust, that actually get worse over time. And that's because we've had this cold weather over the last, especially week, but even last couple weeks, it's been nice and cool. And so these facets develop over time, and in some ways may get worse over this rain crust. And it's pretty hard to impact it when you've got 120 centimeters on top, but where the avalanches have been taking place, some in the Roslyn Range. If you look at the Mountain Information Network on the Avalanche Canada website, you can see examples of avalanches in the Roslyn Range, around Kootenay Pass, around Whitewater. There was an involvement around Whitewater that involved 4 people, and it's all on this layer. And typically it's all been involving areas where they've been triggering it in more shallow snowpack. So how do we manage this persistent weak layer problem, which is basically kind of a low probability but high consequence situation? You can imagine, all this snow falling down. Sometimes you trigger it in a shallow zone, and then in areas where the snowpack is deeper, it's still like dominoes will run under the deeper snowpack, and you get this big avalanche with all this snow falling down. How do we manage that? Obviously, some conservative choices. Really, I think about consequences. I'm trying to avoid these types of big slopes or slopes that have really nasty terrain traps, where if this wall of snow comes down on top of me, I just don't want to be in a place like that. So I'm okay maybe with some steeper terrain as long as the features are fairly small, and then I'm dealing with a smaller potential avalanche rather than a really big potential avalanche. It's a tricky situation. The Avalanche Bulletin does a super job of describing it and sort of adjusting the danger rating based on this sort of combination of the likelihood of triggering it, which isn't super likely, but then the consequences are fairly significant because it's so deep. So hopefully that's helpful, and we'll try to give you an update here sometime in the new year. Happy New Year to everyone. Got a nice deep snowpack for everyone. It's been a great year so far. Cheers. So besides choosing slopes that have lower consequences, the other thing that's really important when we're managing these deep persistent slab issues is staying really vigilant to good travel practices. So that means being really aware of where your entrances are to avalanche terrain, where your exits are in the avalanche terrain, and then managing the group appropriately. Staying really vigilant about making sure that you're trying to only expose one person at a time onto the avalanche slope, and then getting them to a safe spot before the next person enters the slope. Some other things to think about when you're dealing with persistent weak layers.